Chapter 14. For a moment, Sam hoped that the sudden thunder would muffle the sound of the car starting in the driveway. Then he noticed that Bates was standing at the end of the counter, and from that position he could see the entire driveway and a quarter of a mile up the road, so there was no sense trying to ignore Lila's departure. "Mind if I come in for a few minutes?" Sam asked. "Wife's taken a little ride into town. She's fresh out of cigarettes." "Used to have a machine here," Bates answered, "but there wasn't enough cow for them, so they yanked it out." He peered over Sam's shoulder, gazing off into the dusk, and Sam knew he was watching the car move onto the highway. Too bad she had to go all that way. Looks as if she's going to be raining pretty hard in a few minutes. "Get much rain around here?" Sam sat down on the arm of a battered sofa. "Well, quite a bit," Bates nodded vaguely. "We get all kinds of things around here." What did he mean by that remark? Sam peered up at him in the dim light. The eyes behind the fat man's glasses seemed vacant. Suddenly, Sam caught the tail whiff of alcohol, and the same moment he noticed the bottle standing at the edge of the counter. That was the answer. Bates was a little bit drunk, just enough to immobilize his expression, but not enough to affect his awareness. He caught Sam looking at the whiskey bottle. "Care for a drink?" he was asking. "Just about to pour a little one for myself when you came in." Sam hesitated. "Well, find you a glass. There's one under here someplace." He bent behind the counter, emerging holding a shot glass. "Don't generally bother with them myself. Don't generally take a drink when I'm on duty either, but this was damp coming on. Little something helps, particular if you have a little rheumatism the way I do." He filled the shot glass, pushed it in front of the counter. Sam rose and walked over to it. "Besides, there won't be any more customers coming along in this rain. Look at it come down." Sam turned. It was now raining hard. Flow. He couldn't see the mirror than a few feet up the road in the downpour. And it was getting quite dark, too. But Bates made no movement to switch on any lights. "Go ahead, take your drink and sit down," Bates said. "Don't worry about me. I like to stand here." Sam returned to the sofa. He glanced at his watch. Lila had been gone about 8 minutes now. Even in this rain, she'd get to Fairville in less than 20, then 10 minutes to find the sheriff, or say 15 just to be on the safe side. 20 minutes more to return. Still, it would be better than 3/4 of an hour. That was a long time to stall. What could he talk about? Sam listened and lifted his glass. Bates was taking a swig out of the bottle. He made a gulping noise. "Gulp. Must get pretty lonesome out here sometimes," Sam said. "Well, that's right." The bottle thumped down on the counter. "Pretty lonesome. But interesting, too, in a way, I suppose. I'll bet you get to see all kinds of people in a spot like this." "Oh, they come and go. I don't pay much attention. After a while, you hardly notice." "Been here a long time?" "Over 20 years running the motel. I've always lived here, all my life." "And you run this whole place by yourself?" "That's right." Bates moved around the counter carrying the bottle. "Here, let me fill your glass." "Oh, I really shouldn't." "Won't hurt you." "I'm not going to tell your wife." Bates chuckled. "Besides, I don't like to drink alone." He poured, then retreated behind the counter. Sam sat back. The man's face was only a gray blur in the growing darkness. The thunder sounded overhead again, and there was no lightning. And here inside, everything seemed quiet and peaceful. Looking at this man, listening to him, Sam was beginning to feel slightly ashamed. He sounded so damn ordinary. It was hard to imagine him being mixed up in something like this. And just what was he mixed up in, anyway, if he was mixed up? Sam didn't know. Mary had stole some money. Mary had been here overnight. She had lost an earring in the shower. But she could have banged her head. She could have cut her ear when the earring came off. Yes, and she could have gone to Chicago, too, just the way Albergas and the sheriff seemed to think. He really didn't know very much about Mary when it came right down to it. In a way, her sister seemed more familiar. A nice girl. but too hair-triggered, too impulsive, always making snap judgments and decisions, like this business of wanting to run straight up and search Bates' house. Good thing he talked her out of that one. Let her bring the sheriff. Maybe even that was a mistake. The way Bates was acting now, he seemed like a man who had anything on his conscience. Sam remembered that he was supposed to be talking. It wouldn't do to just sit here. You were right, he murmured. It's raining pretty hard. I like the sound of the rain, Bates said. I like the way it comes down hard. It's exciting. Never thought of it that way. Guess you can use a little excitement around here. Well, I don't know. We get our share. We? I thought you said you lived here alone. I said I operated the motel alone. But it belongs to both of us. My mother and me. Sam almost choked on the whiskey. He lowered the glass, clenching it tightly in his fist. Oh, I didn't know. Of course not. How could you? Nobody does. That's people she always stayed in the house. She has to stay there, you see. Most people think she's dead. The voice was calm. Sam couldn't see Bates' face in the dimness now, but he knew it was calm too. Actually, there is excitement around here after all, like there was 20 years ago when Mother and Uncle Joe Considine drank the poison. I called the sheriff, and he came out and found them. Mother left a note explaining everything. Then they had an inquest, but I didn't go to it. I was sick. Very sick. They took me to the hospital. I was in the hospital a long time, almost too long to do any good when I got out. But I managed. Managed? Bates didn't reply, but Sam heard the gurgle and then the bottle thump. Here, Bates said. Let me pour you another. Not yet, I insist. He was coming around the counter now, and his shadowy bulk loomed over Sam. He reached for Sam's glass. Sam drew back. First tell me the rest, he said quietly. Bates halted. Oh, yes. I brought Mother back home with me. That was the exciting part, you see, going out to the cemetery at night and digging up the grave. She'd been shut up in that coffin for a long time. At first I thought she really was dead, but she wasn't, of course. She couldn't be, or else she would have been able to communicate with me, and I was in the hospital all that while. It was only a trance state, really, when we call suspended animation. I knew how to revive her. There are ways, you know, even if some folks call it magic. Magic, that's just a label, you know, completely meaningless. It wasn't so very long ago that people were saying that electricity was magic. Actually, it's a force which can be harnessed if you know the secret. Life is a force too, a vital force, and like electricity, you can turn it off and on, off and on. I turned it off. I knew how to turn it on again. Do you understand me? Yes, it's very interesting. I thought you might be interested. You and the young lady. She isn't really your wife, is she? Why? You see, I know more than you think I know, and more than you know yourself. Mr. Bates, are you quite sure you're all right? I know what you mean. You think I'm drunk, don't you? But I wasn't drunk when you came in here. I wasn't drunk when you found that earring and told the young lady to go to the sheriff. Sit still now. Don't be alarmed. I'm not alarmed, am I? And I would be if anything was wrong, but nothing is wrong. You don't think I'd tell you all this if there was anything wrong to you? The fat man paused. No. I waited until I saw her drive up the road. I waited until I saw her stop. Stop? Sam tried to find the face in the darkness, but he could hear was the voice. Yes. You didn't know that she stopped the car, did you? You thought she went on to get the sheriff, the way you told her, but she had a mind of her own. Remember what she wanted to do? She wanted to take a look at the house, and that's what she did do. That's where she is now. Let me out of here. Of course, I'm not hindering you. It's just that I thought you might like another drink while I told you the rest about my mother. The reason I thought you might like to know is because of the girl. She'll be meeting Mother now. Get out of my way, Sam rose swiftly, and the blurred bulk fell back. You don't want another drink, then? Bates' voice sounded petulantly over his shoulder. Well, very well. Have it your own. Well, the end of his sentence was lost in the thunder, and the thunder was lost in the darkness as Sam felt the bottle explode against the roof of his skull. Then voice, thunder, explosion, and Sam himself all disappeared into the night. And it was still night, but somebody was shaking him and shaking him up at the night and into his room where the light burned, hurting his eyes and making him blink, but Sam could feel now. And somebody's arm were around him, lifting him up. That's the first he felt of his head would drop off. Then it was always also throbbing. Oh God, his head was throbbing, and he could open his eyes and look at Sheriff Chambers. Sam was sitting on the floor next to the sofa, and Chambers was gazing down at him. Sam opened his mouth. Thank God, he said. He was lying about Lila then. He did get to you. The sheriff didn't seem to be listening. Got to Cal from the hotel about half an hour ago. They were trying to locate your friend Albergas. Seems he checked out, but he never took his bags with him. Left him downstairs Saturday morning, and he's never been back, but he never showed. Got to thinking it over, and then I tried to find you. Had a hunch you might have come out here on your own. Lucky I followed, though. Then Lila didn't notice you? Sam tried to stand up. His head was splitting. Take it easy there. Sheriff Chambers pushed him back. No, I haven't seen her at all. Wait, but this time Sam managed to make it. He stood on his feet swaying. What's happening here? The sheriff muttered. Where's Bates? He must have got up to the house after he slugged me, Sam told him. They're up there now, he and his mother, but she's dead. No, she isn't. Sam murmured. She's alive. The two of them are up in the house with Lila. Come on. The big man plowed out of the rain. Sam followed him, scrambling along the slippery walk, panting, and he began ascent of the steep slope leading up to the house beyond. Are you sure? Chambers called over his shoulder. Everything's dark up here. I'm sure, Sam wheezed, but he might have had his last breath. The thunder came suddenly and sharply, and the other sound was fainter and more shrill. Yet both recognized and heard it. Somehow, both of them recognized it. Lila was screaming.